What's going on, everybody? It's the Hook Cam back again with another film breakdown. Today, breaking news, Brandin Cooks was just traded to the Houston Texans for the number 57 overall pick, as well as a future 2022 overall pick. The Rams needed some serious draft capital. I feel like they don't have enough a first-round pick for the next 5 years. They finally get something in return, as well as the Texans kind of replacing the shoes of DeAndre Hopkins. I'll get into why I don't think that's entirely true, but why I do think Brandin Cooks will definitely help that receiving core. Before we dive in, if you could hit that like button, hit that subscribe button to Jackson Kruger Sports, as well as myself, the Hook Cam. It would mean the world to both of us. Jackson Kruger Sports just hit over 30,000 subscribers. A gigantic congratulations to him. Very, very cool. And guess what, guys? We are going to keep going. Can't stop this train for anything. But with all of that being said, let's dive into some Brandin Cooks film. Brandin Cooks, and I have to say this first and foremost, Brandin Cooks is not going to completely fill the shoes that DeAndre Hopkins did. I love Brandin Cooks. He's one of my favorite receivers in the NFL, no doubt. I think he gets hurt a lot, and I think he's a completely different receiver than DeAndre Hopkins is. I think that he's much shorter, but he can stretch the field, I think, just as well. But as far as yards after the catch, all of that stuff, he's not the same as DeAndre Hopkins, and I think we have to know that before we dive into this film. Now, what did he do for the Rams, and why was he so effective? Last year, obviously, a number of injuries for this kid, and I feel bad about that. I really do. It bums me out that he always gets injured. I'm a Patriots fan. I remember watching him in the Super Bowl get just smoked by Malcolm Jenkins and thinking, damn, if he was still in the game, it could be a different outcome. But let's take a look at what he does with the Rams. And now the Rams, we have to remember, run a very specific kind of offense. A lot of their stuff is based off of this wide zone that we're going to see here, trying to influence this defense coming down this way. You're trying to mess with safeties, you're trying to mess with corners, trying to mess with backers, clearing things out, and there's usually always going to be a deep option, a medium option, and then something in the flat for Jared Goff. Now, Brandin Cooks, a lot of times, he was going to be that deep option or that medium option. In this case, right here, he's going to run this crosser. And why I think he's so effective running these is because of his speed and his ability to get off the line, right? And we watch this quick little stutter step that he does at the bottom. Boom, boom. That 2 steps right there. You're going to make that corner hesitate, and you're going to force him to be late turning his hips. And now when he's getting across the field, that's where he's going to create this separation right here, like we see as he does in this video. Catches the ball, he's sure-handed, does a great job hanging onto the rock, getting upfield. I love everything about it in that sense, and when they move him, and they moved him across the field horizontally, I think he did an outstanding job. You can see it here again, his move off the line, the separation that he creates downfield, he's very, very good at that. Now, one of the other things that I think the Texans can do with Brandin Cooks is you can set him up as a mismatch problem, right? You can line this dude up in the slot, which is something that they did a lot with DeAndre Hopkins, right? You saw DeAndre Hopkins line up all over the field. Well, here we're going to see Brandin Cooks line up as the number 3 receiver, and he's going to run this big, deep out right here that's going to help the Rams get a first down. This is something that Brandin Cooks is really good at, and he's really good at hiding his routes at the top of it, right? And we see this route at the top of it, and it doesn't really look any different than any of his other deep routes, but he does a great job rolling into that speed out and creating, again, separation from this deep safety who's guarding him. And these two cats are trying to bracket him because they're thinking that he's going to try and break this thing down the middle. He's going to end up rolling this thing right into a speed out like we see, but again, he doesn't tip his route at all. He's very good at that. And then also at the top of his route, creating that separation. He didn't really need to there, but again, creating that separation and being able to find the open space. He's very, very good at that. And again, we're just going to see it here, this deep out that he runs at the bottom, and this is something that's going to happen with Brandin Cooks on the Texans, and it's the same thing that we kind of saw with DeAndre Hopkins. Defensive backs have to give them respect. They have to line up 8 to 10 yards off, because if you don't and you get smoked off the line, you're going to get obliterated downfield. So now what happens again, we run Brandin Cooks upfield, really trying to sell that deep fade, get those cornerbacks' hips to turn, and then we shut this thing down for a comeback like he does right there. Excellent job at the sidelines, and that's something that Brandin Cooks does very, very well. He's great at the sidelines. Now here's a clip from the game against Tampa. This game was an absolute roller coaster, and again, it's his ability to get off the line, right? Watch his feet on this, the quick toe tap, and then he gets that cornerback's hips to open, and this is also just a phenomenal play design, right? We're getting a pick right there. There was no intention of that, you know what I mean? It wasn't like this was out a bunch, and we're trying to confuse the defense with routes, so we're running that wide zone. Again, this linebacker's trying to pursue downhill this way. He's going to pick this cornerback for him, and we've got a ton of open space to work with. And again, Brandin Cooks can still run. He does a great job of yards after the catch, C2, split 2 as far as the defenders, and then working upfield. Now here's a quick play from the Seattle game earlier in this year. Again, we see just pressed man coverage, and what we're going to see is a quick jab step to the inside, boom, right there from Brandin Cooks, and then we're going to work upfield, and we're going to do a great job of stacking this defensive back, boom, right here. And what stacking a defensive back means is that as you're running, right, as a receiver, you're even with them right here. You have to work to get in front and then stack on top of this cornerback, so he's got no room to try and get in front of this ball. Now, this is an outstanding ball from Jared Goff and an even better catch from Brandin Cooks, but again, just kind of showing that this dude can still make catches in traffic. He can still play good football for the Texans. Of course, on that play, he was also injured, which is one of my big concerns with Brandin Cooks going to the Houston Texans. Now, a little bit of how I think the Texans are going to use Brandin Cooks, and this is from literally one of the first plays of the year. DeAndre Hopkins lined up in the slot, like I think they're going to line up Brandin Cooks, trying to create that mismatch problem. Now, what I think the Texans are going to do is you're going to see a lot more quick screens with them, and we're going to see a lot more quick screens with him because I think he does a great job of working in open space. And again, I don't think that DeAndre Hopkins and Brandin Cooks are similar as receivers, but I do think that they both do very, very well in open space like we see here. And again, if you give Brandin Cooks this space and you have the defense rushing upfield because they think that they're going to be able to get a hand on the quarterback, and then you're working and you have that leverage, you have that space to work upfield here. Cooks does a good job of reading blocks, getting upfield, and getting some yards after the catch, the same way I saw DeAndre Hopkins do that. Now, again, yes, they are different receivers in terms of size and strength and all of that stuff. Yeah, they are different, definitely, but at the same time, they do have some similarities. The similarities I do see between Brandin Cooks and DeAndre Hopkins is their ability to find that space in the zone, right? And when we look at this clip, we're going to see the Raiders drop into a cover 2 look here. Okay, the safety's rolled up, but he's going to end up rolling back. Boom, you can see right there. They're kind of working to bracket DeAndre Hopkins, but they're essentially working into a cover 2, right? Texans are going to run that play action, pull the guard. We're going to keep these backers nice and tight up to the line of scrimmage. DeAndre Hopkins does a good job working upfield, feels no pressure from either of these cats, and he's going to shut down this route right in the middle of the field. That's a really good job that we see a lot of the times with Brandin Cooks, and I think that he's going to bring that talent to Houston as well. And I think that hopefully Bill O'Brien's going to be able to use that talent the same way that he was able to use DeAndre Hopkins. Now, in this situation, we just have a really simple mismatch between DeAndre Hopkins and a linebacker. Quarterbacks are going to pick that every single time. They love those matchups. And again, this is a mismatch for Brandin Cooks, too. And this is kind of when you get into that weird situation of once you get into that top 5 receiver in the league, if they're matched up with a guy who's not there athletically, it doesn't matter which of those 5 guys you have. Now, I'm not saying Brandin Cooks is a top 5 guy, but I'm saying that if you put Brandin Cooks in this situation where he's lined up in the slot and you can get him on a linebacker, he's going to do the exact same thing. I mean, we've seen the clips of Brandin Cooks route running. We've seen his ability to get off press. We've seen his ability to jab those feet, right, get corners, hips turned, and work to an open spot on the field. Now, in this situation, we're just going to see a really easy one-on-one coverage, right? And the Colts are lining up in a 2-deep look. They're going to end up rolling this cat down. He's going to be responsible for the back who's going to work out this way. And what I love about this clip from DeAndre Hopkins is that he's going to work this play upfield, right? But he doesn't stem it too far to the outside. He does just enough where he can get these cornerbacks' feet. There's just that little bit of hesitation, the same way we see with Brandin Cooks. And then he's going to stem this thing to the inside. But what I like about it is that he waits for the safety to step upfield, and then he's going to break this thing off right there. I mean, that's a great job of being able to find that ability to find that space in coverage and be able to make a play. And I think that Brandin Cooks, in a lot of ways, does the same thing. Right? He does a great job of being able to break off a corner one-on-one. And it's tough to press a guy like Brandin Cooks because he's so good off the line, just like we see in this clip right here. Right? In the clip I talked about earlier. Now, once again, he gets injured, and that's the worry that I have for him. So, with all that being said, guys, I'm the Hook Cam. I hope that you enjoyed this film breakdown. Once again, I think that Brandin Cooks will do well in Houston. I think Bill O'Brien has done a good job of getting his receivers in space and getting them the rock when they need it. And I think that you're going to see it in the screen game. I think you're going to see it in the play action game of him finding that space, that 10 to 15 yards down the field, right in the middle of it, just like they do in this one. And I think that we're going to see that with Brandin Cooks in Houston. So with all that being said, guys, I'm the Hook Cam. I hope you enjoyed this film breakdown. If you could, before you leave, if you could hit that subscribe button to Jackson Kruger Sports, as well as to my channel, it would mean the world to both of us. Jackson Kruger Sports obviously just hit over 30,000 subscribers. big milestone for him. Very happy for him. A congrats is definitely in order. I hope that you enjoyed this film breakdown. There's going to be much more to come with the draft approaching. Maybe some prospect talk, maybe a little mock draft or two. Have to do a mock draft 2.0. I got ripped for the first mock draft I did, so definitely going to have to do another one of those. I think Brady was still a free agent by the time that happened, so things might change a little bit. But I hope you enjoyed this video. With all that being said, guys, that's all I got for you today, and I will see you next time.